So the Grand National is one of the most famous horse races in the world. It's the race that everybody likes to have a bet on, but it's also the race where very few people win. Or is it? Because year after year after year, I am able to win on the Grand National. I write to all the media outlets and the newspapers and televisions every year and say to them, would you like to cover the story of somebody who keeps on winning at the Grand National? But almost without exception, I get completely blanked. However, if you would like to learn how I managed to win on the Grand National pretty much every year, then just watch the rest of this video.
In the corner here, number one for Connor Planeth and Sean Curran.
So the first thing to note is that I only bet on betting exchanges, and there's a clear reason for that. The problem with traditional betting is when you bet against a bookmaker or sportsbook, you may find yourself limited, banned. You won't be able to win over the longer term one way or another. But on a betting exchange, you're betting against other people. And if you're better than them, then you will win money. There's no cap on how much money you can win, and it's you against somebody else. So that's a much better way of betting. However, there's also another significant benefit.
Now then, we're off to Wolverhampton again, and we've got quite a market mover here. Intensifier, 25, 16, 14, 12, now 10 to 1. Intensifier in this, the win, whatever the result with BetAngel handicap. Now that sounds good, doesn't it? Whatever the result, I will win. That's fantastic. Who can lose in this race?
So there are a number of benefits of using a betting exchange, the first of which we have mentioned already. And that is that if you win consistently over a period of time, you will not be restricted or banned. There's no need for the exchange to do that. But you can also do clever things. If you're looking at a market and you think, well, I'm not willing to place a bet at those odds, you can simply ask for them. You can put an offer into the market and wait for somebody else to take it. But the cleverest thing that you can do on a betting exchange is that you can actually trade a sports market the same way that you would trade a financial market. And that gives you the ability to profit regardless of who goes on to win, and very often before the event has actually even started. So let's explore exactly how you would do that.
Good morning, Henry. Good morning, Peter.
Have you been listening to Peter?
I have, yes, I have. I have been listening to him. But, Peter, it's Grand National Day. It's a fun day, Peter. You should be on any day by National Day. Henry, why have you got the expert on Grand National Day? Have him on next week. Have him on the following week. I'll come in with you in the studio and we'll have a chat. But we don't want him here today. It's Grand National Day. We don't want clever people, Henry. We want the mugs that are like what we are.
So you're probably familiar with the Grand National. I mean, it's one of the most famous horse races in the world, but it's also one of the hardest to get a winning bet on. But what you can see behind me here is my result from the Grand National. This amount is fully hedged. So this basically means that I've bet on the Grand National and I've won before the Grand National has even started. I can sit back and enjoy the race. And what I've done here is I've basically backed, I've laid, I've traded, I've done all sorts of things. And then when I finish doing all of that, I've basically spread that profit across the entire field. But a lot of these terms are probably new to you. You don't fully understand exactly what I'm going on about or how I managed to achieve this amazing result. So let's look a little bit deeper at how that was achieved. So when you bet on a betting exchange, there are two options available to you. You can back something or you can lay something. When we place a back bet, we are betting on something to win. And when we place a lay bet, we are betting on something to lose. And both those options are available for you on the exchange. A back bet is very similar to traditional betting that you would have done. If you go to a race course and you want to place a bet with a bookmaker, you basically go up and you back something. You will say, I will have this amount of money on this particular selection. And what the bookmaker will do is they will actually lay that bet to you. A back and a lay bet are two sides of the same coin. It just depends which side of that bet you are actually on. But in order to understand how we would do that on the exchange, let's place a back and a lay bet. So if we look at a betting exchange market, we can illustrate some of the stuff that I've pointed out already. And we're looking here at a horse race, and the only reason that I use horse racing is because there are so many of them. It's an easy market to illustrate the point, but of course you can do this on any sport that you like. But if we go into this horse race and we actually make a selection within this horse race, I'm going to back a horse here at odds of 6.6 with £100. And that will mean that if I lose on this particular race, if this horse does not go on to win, then I will lose £100. However, if the horse does go on to win, then I will win £560. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and do the opposite. I'm going to place a lay bet instead. So we have to cancel that back bet, and I'm going to go in and lay £100 at 6.8. And what will happen here is if this horse goes on to lose, we will win the £100 that the backer has actually put down. However, in order to get their money, we have basically had to offer a set of odds, and those odds are 6.8. So as a consequence, if this horse goes on to win, the backer will win, we will lose our lay bet, and we will have to give them £580. So this is where things get really interesting on a betting exchange, because you can actually back and lay the same selection in a market. And you're sort of thinking, well, hold on a second, why would you back something to win and lay something to lose? That doesn't really make any sense whatsoever. But it does if you're on a betting exchange, because what you can actually do is lay at a lower price than you back at, or vice versa, and you can actually generate a profit, which is exactly what we've done on this particular race. You can see that I've laid at 5.6, I've backed at 5.7, and the net effect is that we actually end up with a profit on this particular runner. We have basically netted the difference between the back and the lay price, and that means effectively we have a free bet on this particular selection. If any of the other horses go on to win, we will basically lose nothing, but if our horse goes on to win, we will win this £10 free bet. So this is where things get really clever, because we have that free bet on this particular selection, but if we actually hedge our position, then what we can do is we can win whatever the result before the race has even started. We basically spread that profit across all of the selections within the market. Now we could leave the free bet there, but the problem that we have with that is that it will only get credited to our account if that horse goes on to win. By spreading that profit across the field, we reduce the amount of money that we make, but we will win whatever the result. It doesn't matter who goes on to win this race. We've actually won before the race has even started. So basically what I've illustrated here is exactly the way that I started betting on betting exchanges. It's a really simple way of profiting. You're taking advantage of that price movement and the differential in prices to be able to profit. And by hedging that position, what we're actually doing there is we are guaranteeing that we win. And in the case of this particular example that I've given you here, this is before the race has even started. So we know that we've won regardless of who goes on to win this particular race. And of course you can do this on football, tennis, cricket, whatever you fancy. The same strategy can be used, but of course for each individual sport it's slightly different, and those odds movements and the way that the market behaves is slightly different, and therefore you would have to adapt the way that you do these particular bets in order to be able to profit from those particular markets. Sometimes people say to me, well, you know, how do you know which way the odds are going to go? But the fact is you can profit even if you don't know the way that the odds are going to go. But sometimes, and even when I was recording this video, there was a brilliant example that you could use to illustrate exactly when you know what is about to happen. So in order to profit, we need to be able to lay at a lower price than we can back at. And sometimes it's really simple to understand what you need to do. Before the start of the race, people will want to have a look at horses to see how they're behaving. And they will not put their hard-earned money down on a horse if it is misbehaving, much in the same way that you can see this particular horse is doing here. It's even got its own handler, the guy in the blue on the left. So people will not be backing this particular horse. Therefore, we expect the price to get bigger and bigger. The odds will go up and up and up and up. So if we want to profit from this sort of type of activity, as soon as you see a horse playing up like this, then you would tend to lay it, because you can lay at a lower price than you can back at. The odds will drift given that the horse is misbehaving, and at that point you can actually take your bet out of the market. You can cash out for a profit. So there are many strategies that you can use, but this is one of the most simplest strategies that you can deploy to get a profit from a horse race. So what you see in this video is pretty much the way that I used to trade. I would go into the exchange, I would type in the odds and my stake and so on, and that would be how I would trade. But I figured out pretty quickly that if I could create a tool that would allow me to do that faster and more effectively, then that would be the way to go. And that is how BetAngel was created. It wasn't created because of trading It was created to do trading. It was created even before Betfair had an API. I knew what I wanted to do, and I just had to try and find a way of doing it. And if you look at the evolution of BetAngel over the many years now, we continue to invest a huge amount of money into it to bring all of the features that you see that you have today. You've got live racecourse data, you can bring in live scores, you can trade manually, semi-automatically, or have completely fully automated trading algorithms. It's a very different world from the one that I entered into many years ago. But fundamentally speaking, if you use a piece of software like BetAngel, you'll be able to trade much more effectively and on a much bigger scale than you can do manually. So that's basically what I do for a living. I'm just trying to get 2 bets matched. I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but by trading on betting exchanges, it's a very effective way of being able to profit. And of course, on betting exchanges, you can profit. You're not going to get restricted or limited, and it's just down to your skill level and what you can do within the market and what money is available within that particular market that you choose to trade. You can trade many different types of sports, but do realize that you can't just rock up and start printing money instantly. You're going to have to go through those learning curves, and like any skill, the harder you work at it, the better you will become, but everything takes a little bit of time, and in fact you may be unsuccessful when you first start trading. But the reason for doing this video and all of the other stuff that I do is that it is a much better way of profiting from your knowledge of sport. When you bet with a traditional bookmaker, there are a number of issues that you have with that, and when betting exchanges came along, it completely transformed the way that you could participate in sports markets. It was the first time ever that you could use your knowledge and experience to be able to profit from a betting market.